you don't mind, I hate standing behind podiums. I'm Matt Schultz. I'm a city councilman in Council Bluffs. I'm on my second term, and I'm running for Secretary of State. And to be honest with you, it's kind of like being home. This is where I went to high school. This is where I grew up, and I haven't been in this auditorium for quite some time. So it's pretty neat being here and seeing some familiar faces. But I want to talk a little bit about Secretary of State and what the Secretary of State does. Now, when we hear about Secretary of State, we think a lot about elections. But do you all know that the Secretary of State receives 175,000 business filings every year, as well as 127,000 UCC filings? And every day, the Secretary of State's office receives about 200 emails or phone calls regarding business in our state. But currently, we have a Secretary of State who's pretty much got his head in the sand and is not paying attention to business. We need a Secretary of State who's going to stand up and fight for Iowa jobs and business-friendly legislation. You know, last year we saw the Democrats begin to attack our business-friendly state. They started with fair share, attacking our right to work laws. And they then went to federal deductibility, trying to take that away. Where was our Secretary of State? Our Secretary of State did nothing. He has a huge bully pulpit, but he didn't say a thing. When I'm elected Secretary of State, I am going to stand up and fight for Iowa jobs. When right to work's attacked, I'm going to stand up and say this is bad for Iowa. I am going to help the legislature by being a voice for our state, for business, and for jobs. And I've done it as a city councilman in Council Bluffs. Ever since I've been on the council, we've lowered the city tax levy every year. We've brought jobs like Google to Council Bluffs. And we're working hard. Thank you. We're working hard to make Council Bluffs a business-friendly city. I want to take that experience to Des Moines. Wouldn't you agree we need new leadership in Des Moines? Everybody agree on that? Yeah. But let's talk about elections for a second. Anybody here heard of Acorn? Anybody? Yeah. Boo, boo, exactly. Well, I'm an Eagle Scout, and I was taught as an Eagle Scout to be prepared. We haven't heard a lot about Acorn in Iowa, but we need to get prepared. We need to safeguard our elections. How many of you have a photo ID or a driver's license? Raise your hands. Come on. Just about everybody, right? Anybody take a trip on an airplane, get out of the cold weather recently? Anybody? Okay. Did you have to show your driver's license when you got on the airplane to prove who you were? Okay. You know, I was in Council Bluffs, bought some donuts at Hy-Vee for a campaign event. It cost me about $20, and I used a check. And when I got to the cash register, they asked me to see my driver's license to make sure I was who I said I was. Does anybody else think it's strange that when you go to vote, you don't have to show an ID? Anybody? When I'm elected Secretary of State, I am going to stand up and fight every day to safeguard our elections, to work with the legislature to implement a photo ID when you go to the ballot to vote. You know, we also have this funny law that just came into place in the last couple of years called same-day voter registration. Anybody heard of it? Yeah. You can go and register to vote on the same day as the elections are held. Did you know in Lynn County and Cedar Rapids there were 46 people who registered and voted on election day who were not eligible to vote? Renee Schultz, a great Republican legislator, won by only 13 votes. Had 14 more people registered on election day who weren't eligible to vote, she would not be sitting in the Iowa House. We need to reform same-day registration to require provisional ballots. Now I'm down to a minute, so I want to move on to one other thing. Anybody else here heard of Crime Stoppers? Kind of a popular thing. You know, you turn somebody in for a crime. If they are arrested and convicted, you get a little bit of money for a tip. As Secretary of State, I am going to implement Crime Stoppers for voter fraud in the Secretary of State office. Ronald Reagan always said, trust but verified. We need accountability in elections, and I need your help. So please go to my website, votemattschultz.com. Become a friend on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter. We can do this together. I'm the only candidate who has a statewide network. I grew up here in West Des Moines. I went to the University of Iowa, and now I'm a city councilman in Council Bluffs. We need somebody who can take this fight to Michael Morrow and his Southside Des Moines machine. Help me. Sign up and volunteer. Get on board with our campaign, because with your help, we will win. Thank you so much, and have a great day.